to the Warner Brothas podcast. I'm Kyle, joined by my brother Keenan, joined by Timmy G, aka Tim Gray. What's up, fellas?
Not much. I was decent weekend for me. FanDuel and fantasy didn't go great. Sports betting went actually a little bit okay for me. So I'm actually having an okay fantasy sporting betting weekend. But otherwise, it was a really good weekend. Timmy, how about yourself?
Pretty good. I got really lucky in fantasy this week. It was good to see, keeping my season alive. So it was really good to see.
My season ended on. I was already on the brink of. I was already at a 3% chance coming into this week.
Like
and
October.
My season ended. My season. I'm gonna have the first losing season in our league ever, and this has been the 10th year of our league. So I mean, this is what that is. But
what a reign!
I'm like, because I've done a Kyle. You've obviously just joined it. I have a ranking of our best teams of all time, like the greatest teams of all time, and I'm one because no one's. It would have to do a lot for me right now for me not to be one still, even after this.
I did see your Google Doc before the season of the lifetime ranking, so I did see that.
Yeah,
I didn't realize you were that dominant.
No,
I mean, I don't remember. That's crazy.
That's
quite a bit of. I mean, that's obviously it takes some skill to draft, but that's a lot of luck too for 10 years to not really sustain major injuries or make the right trade here and there.
It's big because here's what happened. Like early on in our league, it started off being like I drafted just better than other people, and basically like say like the top of our league was here, the bottom of our league was here. The bottom of our league is absolutely caught up. Like Joey Wade, shout out to Joey Wade. He has made immense difference between his first ever football mind to his football mind now. But really what got me was I just managed to trade rape a bunch of people. Like me and Austin have been king of trades. Like one year I had Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. I drafted him before the season. This is 2015, the year that Peyton had threw 9 touchdowns and 17 picks. We didn't know that going in, obviously, but I traded that Peyton Manning for Antonio Brown on the Steelers that year, which was so like things like that.
That's enough to swing a season.
But it's still things like that just made it so I didn't lose in the regular season, but in the playoffs, David Johnson is my most hated player of all time in fantasy because he's ruined 4 seasons for me, and I legitimately mean 4 seasons.
Didn't Todd Gurley run all over you 1 year too, 1 or 2 years?
Yep. So, so Todd Gurley. So here's what I'm going to run through this real quick, and then we'll get into what we're doing. 1 year, David Johnson, Monday Night Football. Jared's down 37 points. This is year 2. He gets a 41-point piece night. In the playoffs, I lose. I then checks in the group chat. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to be done with fantasy football in this league. I was very upset.
41 points.
Yeah, no, he had himself one of the greatest Monday night games in fantasy football history because it killed me. He literally was down he had 1 player left. I was like, I'm going to it. I would have won it all that year. The next year, we did a keepers league. This was like a weird point in our league. We did like a weird keepers, and then we didn't. So then Todd Gurley it was the year Todd Gurley went off. Camden had David Johnson. Austin had Todd Gurley. Because we were doing keepers, Austin ended up trading David Johnson to Camden for Todd Gurley. So Camden then ended up, or the other way around, sorry. So Camden ended up with Todd Gurley, ran through the entire league, and then won, beat me in that process. Also, then Curtis Bowen also ended up trading. This is when I worked at Turning Points. You know how at Turning Points they banned ESPN, so we couldn't go on it? Do you remember that point for fantasy football? Because
vaguely sounds familiar.
Okay, it's because Flanders had something like whatever it is. They basically said you cannot go on ESPN. Curtis Bowen offered me a trade for David Johnson. I was going to receive David Johnson. I had the trade lined up perfectly. It was going to set my team over the top. This was at about 12:30. I'm at work, so I can't accept it until 3. I told him to send it. Austin comes swooping in and puts up a better offer that I just can't do. And because I'm at work, I can't accept it. And then he was like, man, Austin sent me a trade. I can't refuse. I was like, you know what? That's a better trade than I can't do anything about it. Austin beat me in the Super Bowl that year. Like, I can't make this stuff up. David Johnson, but the year I won, It was when David Johnson was on the Texans. Joe DeZazzo had him, and David Johnson was having a very good game, but I beat David Johnson. So I slayed my own dragon to win my first ever championship. I'm basically Peyton Manning, the greatest regular season quarterback of all time. In the playoffs, it's been shaky, but we still got one. Sorry to go on that little fantasy soliloquy, but we can move.
I feel like there was one more, though. Didn't you say he swung 4
I
seasons?
did say 4. There is one more. I'm not going to get... Oh, no. Okay, so David Johnson was 3, and then the other one was Derrick Henry, the game he ran for 99 yards. Like, I had a 99-yard run. That game, I played Justin in the playoffs, and it just felt like David Johnson because it was one player, one running back, killed my entire season. I could go through every year. I should be like a 6-time champ. But I'm a 1-time champion. I've been to the big game twice, but I'm a 5-time best owner, so... That's
why fantasy is literally a crapshoot.
It really is.
I will say, I mean, speaking of Joey Wade, I'm down, I believe, 10 points to him right now. It's going to come down to tonight's game for us. I got AJ Brown going. I'm winning in both of my other leagues right now. One of them I'm dead last, but I still got a outside chance. I really like my squad, actually. I don't even know how I'm last. Kind of like Joe DeZazzo in our league. I don't see how he's last. I really like Joe DeZazzo's team. Honestly, more than my own team, and he's somehow got the worst record. And then the league that I feel the best about, my team right now is slightly on the outside looking in. I'm at 7th, need to get in that 6th spot, but I'm winning too, and I got Jalen Hurts going tonight. So We'll see. A lot of time left to make noise in all 3 leagues for me, so I feel okay about that. Keenan, you're not doing good in our Yahoo basketball league either. I mean, we got to get to these Week 11 games, but that was my thought too. I'm like, damn, he's having a rough fantasy football season in his main league. Mm-hmm. Yahoo, it's not going well. You had a bad year last year for Yahoo basketball too. You're doing okay. You're doing okay in the ESPN league though, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I'm 2-2 in the ESPN league. Dustin just beat me, so I think I'm 1-3 in that, which is not a great start, obviously. But my team's much better off. In my work league for fantasy basketball, I'm 2-2. In my work league for football, I'm 7-3, the second best team, and I've been missing Justin Jefferson for the last 6 weeks. We've been plugging and playing at wide receiver every week. Like last week, we picked up Noah Brown and Trent Irwin, worked out well. This week, we picked up Tutu Atwell and Quentin Johnson. Didn't work out great, but I'm still looking like I'm going to get a W. So here's we're okay. My fantasy wise this year, fantasy wise hasn't been great, but we're going to go on to week 11 because I might talk about it even more. All right, so biggest takeaways of week 11. This could even be just week 11, or you could even kind of make it a broader aspect to whatever. But biggest takeaways after this weekend of football, Timmy, we are going to start with you.
My biggest takeaway, or at least one of them, with Joe Burrow going out, Deshaun Watson going out, the Ravens are in the driver's seat of the AFC North. I don't think they really have to worry. I know last time when I was on, you guys were talking about how this was like a 10 out of 10 must-win game, kind of for both teams. Now with Burrow out, they don't got to really worry about the Bengals being a playoff team. The Steelers are still the Steelers, and now the Browns only have a defense keeping them in. So my biggest takeaway is that in the AFC North, they're going to run away with it, and I think in the AFC, they have a pretty good shot at making the 1 seed just because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Go.
To respond to that, the AFC North is definitely weird. I think my biggest takeaway from it, or one thing that stands out to me, is that Kenny Pickett, with Deshaun going down, with Joe Burrow going down, you can still make the argument he's the worst quarterback in the AFC North. I mean, he had an atrocious game yesterday. He actually, this is a true stat, he only threw, I believe it was 7 or 8 balls that went beyond the sticks. Not a single one was completed. I mean, I knew yesterday was going to be ugly, but I really thought, push come to shove, that the Steelers could at least move the ball a little bit. I know, Cleveland's a tough place to play, especially with that defense, but I thought they could at least get to 15 points. Couldn't. That was an extremely ugly game. DTR looked okay. He did enough to win it.
He made plays with his
and
legs.
Then this guy, what's the Bengals backup name?
Jake Browning.
Jake Browning.
Jake Browning.
It's
kind of funny because he didn't look bad. He spent he must have got the majority of the snaps in the preseason.
Yeah.
They got a ton of talent around him. They're going to be able to at least compete. They're going to have a little bit of a shot at the wild card. Obviously, that takes a hit, but I mean, it's all kinds of jumbled in the AFC. Anybody could win it, and anybody could get that last wild card spot.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd give the edge to the Bills, especially after yesterday. But the Steelers are interesting, and the Steelers got an easy schedule, so they'll still probably make the playoffs and somehow maybe even get to 10 wins, which is insane to me. But Browning, back to him. Yeah, I think they'll have a very outside chance. When I say outside chance, I mean like 15% chance, but they're going to compete. They have talent. I think it's funny. He's number 6 and his stance kind of looks like Burrow. So after Burrow went out, it still kind of looked like Joey B was in the game, but it's literally the opposite. It's Jake B. But I don't know. I mean, you could definitely make the case that he's at least more competent than Kenny Pickett. I mean, it's unbelievable how bad he is, honestly.
Kenny Pickett definitely. We're talking about like Mac Jones, and we've talked about Zach Wilson, who's now 3rd on the depth chart. Like we've talked about these guys. Like Kenny Pickett is not good at all. Like he got drafted because he was a Pittsburgh kid. They needed a quarterback. It made sense at the time, but this team, they need to move on from him. Everyone knows that. Like hopefully they do move on from him, because like they won't win anything putting him out there at your quarterback. Like you can't do any. Like they're winning in spite of him right now. Like imagine if they would have like had Josh Dobbs per se. Like just see how Josh Dobbs has been playing this year. Or
they did have him.
I know that's they did. But like either Josh Dobbs, or could you imagine like Kirk Cousins per se on that roster? I mean, obviously in Minnesota, he's like the Minnesota Vikings, how they're playing right now. Brian Flores does such a good job defensively. That was something I took away from watching that Sunday night game. But
try to tell y'all 6 weeks ago.
I know. I don't think Timmy and I ever said they were a bad team. We just said that I didn't think Kirk Cousins was going to be the guy to lead them to a Super Bowl. We just said that we're 1-4.
Y'all said, you said they should blow it up. I said they're going to make a run.
I said they should. I know you're right. You are correct in that saying that. I didn't think they were going to make this run. I was dead wrong in that. I don't think they're still winning a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. I thought their blowing up should be getting rid of Kirk Cousins. That should be their blow. I didn't have any other trades that they should do. Keep Jefferson, TJ Hawkins, and Jordan Addison. All that's got to say, but I think they needed a different quarterback to win a Super Bowl. That was my opinion. I still agree with that opinion. I don't. But I mean,
I never know. I mean, now you could say that, especially with the Achilles. But man, the league is as wide open as it's ever been.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we say it every year, but I mean, Minnesota with Kirk Cousins, I would like them a lot right now, especially the way the defense is playing, especially the way. I mean, the Niners look great. Don't get me wrong, but every single team in this league has not just holes, but like glaring holes. I mean, really, maybe outside of the Niners, but I mean, we saw what Purdy can do when he loses even one of his weapons. So. Yeah, I mean, Cousins in big games. Don't get me wrong. We know his record there, but he was onto something this year. It seemed like. I mean, you just never know in this league. We've seen Joe Flacco get a Super Bowl ring. We've seen Eli get 2, and then the rest of his years are mediocre. So it's just that's kind of where I was going with it.
Absolutely, and actually, since we're talking about it, that was one of my takeaways from this weekend. So I'll kind of just branch into mine. Was the Super Bowl is as wide open as I've ever seen it at this moment in time. Like typically every year, a lot of years it's open, but typically there are like some true favorites. Like in the AFC right now, I don't feel like there's a true favorite. I feel like there's just favorites. Like I feel like KC, you would edge some of KC just because of their pedigree, and you have Mahomes and Reed. Obviously, Baltimore looks like the most complete team right now because offensively and defensively how they're playing, even though Casey's been playing very good defensively too. Miami, the thing about Miami is they haven't beaten a good team, but at the same time, that offense is so explosive at times, even though the Raiders held them this week. That offense is so explosive where you're like, okay, they've got at least a puncher's chance because at any point they can get things going, but obviously if they have to go through to KC or to Baltimore, it's going to be different. Jacksonville's interesting. Trevor looked really good against the Titans, albeit it was the Titans, but again, that was a game when Kyle and I were talking on Thursday. It needs to be front to back, no questions asked about it, and I'm giving him credit for making that. So it was front to back, there was no questions asked. That was the Jacksonville win. Then obviously Buffalo, I don't think they're making the playoffs still, personally. I had them missing before. I still have them missing. But if they get in, obviously at any point they could have the best quarterback on the field, regardless if it's Mahomes or whomever. Like, for a game, he can be the best quarterback on the field. Cleveland's defense is interesting. Pittsburgh's defense is interesting, and they have coaching. And then I don't like Houston's not going to make noise in the playoffs, like deep playoff run, but they can make the playoffs, and at that point they're not going to be an easy out. So there's just so much in the AFC. The NFC, for me, it's Detroit, no order. Philly, Detroit, Dallas, and San Fran, and then Minnesota and Seattle are on like those sleeper teams that could maybe win a playoff game. But there's just so much in the league right now, especially the AFC, that's just wide open. You could tell me 9 different options of combinations of Super Bowls, and I'd be like, okay, I'm listening.
Just to respond to that, I'm glad you brought up the NFC picture and the Lions in particular. I would actually have the Lions 4th behind the top 3, the 2 NFC East teams, and behind the Niners. Good win from them yesterday. First of all, great win, really. I mean, what? They scored like 16 points in about 4 minutes, whatever it was.
Yep.
But man, I think Dallas, Philly, and the Niners, like if you're playing that type of game, like you can just kind of get whatever you want against their defense, it seems. If you can get that from them, obviously they have talent and they can make plays.
Yep.
But if you can move the ball that consistently, and you got Goff having that ugly of a game, he turned into 2020 Jared Goff in the beginning there.
Yeah.
4th quarter, 5 minutes, he came alive, which is great. Like, you need that from a QB. If you can get that out of a QB, great. But, you know, the Bears are very different from the Cowboys, are very different from the Niners, are very different from the Eagles. That's not going to happen. If you're down 2 or 3 scores to those teams, good night. But, again, if they can get a home game, that changes things a little bit, but I'd still favor Dallas over them. That'd be the team that's on the bubble to me. And Eagles and Niners outright, I just think are better than the Lions. I'll remain consistent in that.
I wouldn't favor Dallas. I still wouldn't favor Dallas over them.
They can play defense. That's the thing.
They can, and the Lions, as the last few weeks, their defense has been off, but they were playing defense early to start the season here. So we'll see how it comes around. And they do, the one thing that Detroit does have, and we saw it even in the Bears game, they do have a game wrecker. Aiden Hutchinson can wreck a game, as we saw in that last play. Like, we need a play. We need to get home. He can get home. Like, he's one of those guys who can get home. So that's the good thing about that.
He can. You're not wrong about any of that, but I just think when it comes to those QBs, if Goff's having a day like that, I don't know. I expect that day a little more out of Goff than Dak. I think they're in the same tier. I actually like Goff probably as a QB in general a little more than Dak. But man, if he's having that ugly of a day, which he's proven he can have that. I don't know. That could get ugly against Dallas, Philly, or the Niners, especially the way the Niners defense is playing now after the trade.
Timmy, your thoughts?
I think if you're going to bet on a quarterback to have like a 3 turnover performance, I would 100% pick Dak over Goff. He's definitely had that in big moments too, like 49ers.
He's got in his gene for
That's
sure.
like in his DNA. Has he been better this year? Yeah, he doesn't turn the ball over as much so far. But to be fair, their schedule's been pretty cupcake. They played the Giants twice, the Jets, the Panthers. Like, those 4 games, I'm not expecting him to throw picks in those games. I totally agree with what Keenan said, and I agree with a lot of what Kyle said. The Lions are no longer like in my 1 or 2 category, but I would still favor them over Dallas right now.
Yeah, I would put to the.
That's a game we're gonna see late too.
Mm-hmm.
I think they play week 16 or 17, so
Yes.
Not sure whether that's in Detroit or whether that's in Dallas. Either way, let's say that hypothetically came in the playoffs too. Either way, you're getting a dome game, but I do think Dallas is more complete. Yeah, Goff's again probably slightly the better quarterback, maybe even more than slightly. Like, you might even be, if Dak's a B, you might call Goff a full B plus, right? But just team to team, what Dallas can do on defense, how explosive they can get, and they could participate in a shootout with you, then you'd favor their defense to make a play before Detroit, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. No, I agree with the fact that if you're in a shootout and you had one team to make a play, I think that the Cowboys have more playmakers on their defense. Bland has been a playmaker this year. He's been putting the ball in the end zone, not just picking it off. Obviously, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Stephon Gilmore knows how to play defense too. So you're right in that aspect. I think if you're looking one team to make a play, I would probably say the Cowboys defensively. I think Dak's actually a better quarterback than Goff, in my opinion. I think Dak's more apt to have a 3-turnover game, and I think at this point it's because of the way they're coached. Goff, those games for Goff are few and far between now because of the fact that Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery that's their bread and butter. That's their offense. They're a run first team, and they're going to run the ball. And you know that, and teams can't stop it regardless of knowing that going in. And with Dallas, sometimes they put it on Dak too much, so he's more apt to have those 3-turnover games because of the fact that they haven't been able to really get a running game going all year. I mean, Tony Pollard had a nice touchdown run, but even then in that game, he didn't really get it going. He was, I think, 3.5 yards per carry, roughly around there. It's not going to get it done, which is why I favor the Lions, just because they can throw. You have Amon-Ra, you have Sam Porter, you have Jamison Williams is now a deep threat for you. Josh Reynolds has a good connection with Jared Goff from his time with the Rams. But I just think that there's more certainty with the Detroit offense than there is with Dallas's offense. But again, you could kind of say there's more certainty with Dallas's defense. But I do trust. I don't know. I just trust like kind of what the format of the Lions are. I think I know what more so into every game. I know what I'm getting from them, and more so than I do with the Cowboys in bigger spots. But we'll see more so as we go on.
I see where you're coming from. And you're probably not wrong when you guys say, maybe I'll retract my statement when I say Goff is more likely to throw 3 picks than Dak. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Maybe it's because his picks were so ugly yesterday. There were ones that you just cannot make kind of thing. Whereas Dak seemed to be more like receiver, just not on the right page, not the right communication, whatever. But my thing, Dallas and the Lions, that is more of a conversation, especially than the top two to me, again, Eagles, Niners. But yeah. And you're right, especially like if it comes to running the ball, you like the Lions a little better. So they could technically win a ball control game. It's if you could run on Dallas because that defense, again, is explosive. But Gibbs is nice between the tackles for being a burner. You don't really see that. He reminds me a little bit of maybe some LaShawn McCoy, because McCoy could do it between the tackles a little bit too. But, man, the Lions in a ball control battle with the Eagles or Niners, you're not winning it. You have to get a shootout. And even that, you're not winning a shootout with the Eagles or the Niners, especially if it's at home, especially if it's in Philly. Maybe at your best bet, you can win one in San Francisco. But even that, I mean, look how their offense is playing. You had Purdy with a perfect quarterback rating yesterday, and he's never going to throw you more than 15 incompletions, 12 incompletions. I mean, that's just not going to happen. Ball controls the Niners game. So you'd have to have a perfect game to go into San Francisco, even in the Dome, even if they're home against the Niners. You'd have to play a perfect game to win that. So I don't know. I don't see it against those top two. You're talking to me into this against Dallas. Maybe that's more of an argument. Yeah. But Philly, Niners, I could not see it.
The Eagles,
home or away,
are tough. Like, I think they'd have a better chance against the Niners than the Eagles, just the way they match up with them. But you're right. Both, I mean, those two teams have just so much talent on them. But if there is a way that you're going to beat those teams, the Lions would have your format because they can control the ball. I think they can win at the point of attack with how good their offensive line is. That's not saying that the 49ers or Eagles can't win at the point of attack with how good their defensive lines are. But you need a really good offensive line to play against either one of those teams, because if they can get home, then it's good night. But so you can give Goff some time, and then you can get Montgomery and Gibbs out there, and you can kind of control the amount of possessions Hurts and Brock Purdy, respectively, would have. Again, those are just two really tough teams to play. They've got so much talent on the board.
Yeah, if it's a hypothetical 20-17 game, I'm taking the Niners and Eagles in those games all day. They want those games at the end of the day. You know what I mean? They can give you 35, but they're just as happy giving you a 2017 game. So that's where I favor those two over Detroit. But hey, I mean, Detroit's had an easy schedule. We'll find out a little more. I mean, these Viking games are going to be enticing Kirk Cousins or Dobbs
Yep.
either way. You know what I mean? And then we do get that one Cowboys
Mhm.
game, but other than that, it's going to be cake for them. But
In Dallas.
yeah, I'm
by
definitely
the way.
intrigued. And by the way, I think this Packers game on Thanksgiving, I think the Packers are a live dog in that game. If you can move the ball the way these teams have been moving the ball against Detroit, the Packers are moving the ball a little better. You never know what can happen in that game if it turns into a shootout. Obviously, you favor Detroit, but hey, Packers might be catching them at the right time.
Timmy, did you have anything else you wanted to say on the matter, or you can bring up your next if you have another takeaway?
Sure. Which one do I want to go with? We've kind of already talked about it, but one big takeaway I do have is that the 49ers are just completely back. We kind of saw what Debo kind of means to this team. Like when Debo was out, Purdy didn't play quite as well, but now he's back and he just had a perfect pass rating. So like between that and then the defense adding, they did lose. Not even going to try.
Afunga.
Yep, that one. I couldn't say his last name very well, which is big. He's a large part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the best safeties in the league.
Exactly. So that is a big loss. But with Chase Young, that they were wrecking house. You know, they got a lot of pressure this weekend. If that's going to happen on a weekly basis, that's a huge deal. So I think the 49ers have a very good Super Bowl shot this year. They just need to stay healthy. That's it. Like their offense just needs all these pieces, which are a lot of injury prone pieces, to just stay healthy. And
Trent
they can
Williams.
make it there. Yeah, true.
Trent Williams needs to stay healthy for
Williams,
him. I think
CMC, Debo, Purdy.
And honestly, in order for me personally, not taking out the quarterback position, I would say it would go Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Debo, or George Kittle, Debo, then Ayuk. In my personal opinion, I think Trent Williams is that important because also like when Debo was missing, Trent Williams was also missing too, which is also another thing away. I think all of them are obviously super important because all of them are A-level players. Like all of them are all-pro level players. So they're all important. But when you have arguably the best left tackle in the game right now, still the best left tackle, one of the best left tackles in the game, doing what he's doing, it just makes your life so much easier. Kyle, did you have any other takeaways from your weekend?
I mean, I got quite a bit through these games. I mean, honestly, that Geno Smith injury, that's going to hurt the Seahawks because that was a very winnable game. The Rams did everything they could to lose that game, honestly, and that field goal just comes up just short. So you have a true argument that if Geno at least just plays those 2 or 3 drives he missed, that they very well could have won. Mm-hmm. And the reason why that hurts so much, they got the Niners twice, the Eagles, and the Cowboys the next 4 weeks. Like they got the class of the NFC. They could very well fall out of the picture altogether. I'm sure it softens up a bit after that. I haven't looked, but those are the next 4. You got the one to win would be this Thursday, and you got Geno coming off an injury because you're not beating San Francisco at home. Cowboys, who knows? Like I said, they have the more talented team, but I don't see them winning either one of those Niners games or the Eagles game. So, I mean, this would be the one at home, and you got Geno coming off fresh of an injury. Who knows if he's going to play? Hopefully he does. But
Titans, Steelers, Cardinals are their last 3 after. So they could go easily. They could go 2-1, but I mean, you have a divisional game with the Cardinals, so that could be interesting enough. And Kyler will be fully back by that point. Then you have the Steelers, which is really good defense, and they're well coached, and they're going to be playing for the playoffs at that point. So that's not going to be an easy game. And then Vrabel's just always a well coached team, so it's nothing. It gets easier, but it's not like these are just. There's never really a cakewalk in the NFL, but these teams aren't like ones where you can just walk all over them, in my personal opinion. The Titans would be the easiest game out of all 3 of them just because of the divisional aspect between the Cardinals and Seahawks. You know, it's not a good loss. It's not a good loss. They don't... The thing about the Seahawks right now is their offense looks so... No. Just no. Like they have the pieces. Kenneth Walker is out with an oblique now. We don't know how long that's going to be. I mean, Zach Charbonneau's cool, but like he's not Kenneth Walker. You have Tyler Lock. You have a great core of receivers in DK, Tyler Lockett, Smith and Jigba has been playing very good, and even Bobo has been playing pretty good as a specialty guy. For Noah Fant, decent. It's just they haven't been able to get it done, and it's coming. Geno this year has not looked great, but we saw how bad they looked with Drew Lock, and that was only a few possessions. Obviously, they didn't. Drew Lock was even worse. So like Geno hasn't been great this year. They're a team that definitely needs the answer for the future. I think Geno was a nice short term answer for them. And okay, we can kind of like the same way they did. I mean, Russell Wilson's was better, but like the same way they did 2016 ish, where they were trying to rebuild, but still ended up making the playoffs or like getting around the playoff contention every single year because of the fact of that was just Russell being really good. This is like, oh, we have a lot of young talent that can actually play. We drafted well. We got 2 really good corners. We've got offensive pieces. Now they just need to get the quarterback to match that. So they could get a veteran guy in there to try to do something. I think they can make a run. I mean, we had them in the Super Bowl again. I don't think that's going to happen, but I mean, we'll never know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind Geno with them, especially when you look at the landscape of the league with quarterbacks. We've talked about that. So he's definitely had his moments where he's making dumb throws. But he's still like, even yesterday, he orchestrated a pretty good drive to get him into field goal position. And he's done that a few other times where he's been good late and been subpar the rest of the game. So, yesterday was just really bad luck with that injury and the timing of it and then how it ended, given what their schedule is coming up. But
yeah,
I agree. They're a team that's just, I think they're better than last year overall, even though they were more explosive last year. But I think I take them more seriously in the playoffs this year, depending on the matchup, of course.
Yeah, I think they're just more well-rounded this year. This year, if Geno was playing like last year, this year, I think they would be in the Super Bowl bubble. Like I think they would be right on the outside of where we have Detroit and Dallas. They'd be right there, and so I think they're a step and a half even down from those teams. And it's just because Geno hasn't been playing great football this year. We'll see if he can turn it around. Anything on those teams, Timmy? Or you're just bobbleheading it?
I'd like to see, because Geno had said he doesn't know if he's going to play Thursday. That's a big deal. They need him to win games, even though he hasn't been playing very well. I watched the game when they played Washington last week, and Geno finished with a pretty good stat line. I think he was over 300. I think he might have even thrown 3 touchdowns. But if you watch the first half of that game, he did not play a good full game. He really came alive in the second half. So if he does come back, we want to see sustained goodness. The one thing that they were really good with last year were their shots downfield. They would take 30-yard shots downfield to DK and Tyler Lockett, and he was really accurate in those throws. And that was something I saw in the Washington game. He just wasn't very accurate on those throws. Or he would be throwing it and be on a miscommunication with the wide receiver. So they need to shore some things up. One thing I don't really agree with the Seattle is they get into field goal range, right into field goal range, and they ran it on second down. They got 2 yards. I'd like to see them take a shot there because even if they don't get the incompletion, they stop the clock. Running it there was probably not the great idea because they got 2 yards and then
that
they
was
made
stupid.
it. Yeah, 57-yarder to a 55er. Yeah, I don't know if that's really going to change the odds of him making this kick. Let's take a shot 10 or 12 yards downfield and make it like a 42-yarder. Yeah, I'd like that. So I don't necessarily agree with the coaching on that, but I could still see them turning this around if Geno does just kind of swing it back and if he's healthy. So.
Oh, they could have. They're probably going to make the playoffs unless something catastrophic happens. And if they're in the playoffs, they're probably going to see. They won't be the 7th seed. Probably they'll be the 6th. So you might be seeing the 49ers or Lions. The better would be for them to face the Lions, just because I think that's an easier game. But they do know the 49ers better than pretty much any other team that's going to make the playoffs, which is good on their behalf. And Pete Carroll's had some success against the 49ers as of late. I think he's 0 for his last 3, but that's just because the Niners have been really good. And last year they played in the playoffs. I think it was 41-23 favor of the Niners. But it was a good weekend. For me, another one might take one go.
I was just going to say, yesterday was a true swing game for the Rams. If the Seahawks make that field goal They only have 3 wins. Now they're 4-6. They're looking at playoffs now, especially with the schedule that the Seahawks have. Um,
Yeah.
I'm very interested in what the Seahawks will do down the stretch here because it's a high chance that they go 0-4. That Cowboys one is really the one you're looking at, I guess. And then, yeah, they could win that last 3 and still get to what it would be 9-8 or how's it fall out? 9-8. So, who knows with them? And it's going to be weird. It's all jumbled in the wild card picture anyway. It does seem like the Seahawks play the same game. It always seems to be like late teens, early 20s with them now. Like it just seems like every week it's an ugly game that's barely over 15, which is I would not have guessed that on this team
There's
coming out. I thought their
actually
offense would have been much more explosive.
I saw a stat on it, and it's if their offense scores more than 20 points, they're 4-0. If they score less than it, they're like 0-4. So, like
Wow.
you said, those team games are the ones that they need to like really pull through and get the wins when they're close.
Yeah, they haven't put up many points at all this year. They've put up, like looking through everything, they've put up 30 twice, and those in weeks 2 and 3. That was against the Lions and then the Panthers back to back. And then since then they put up 29 against the Commanders, but other than that it's 24, 13, 20, 24, 3, 17, 16. Like just their offense can't seem to get it going, and they have the talent to. So it's been some quarterback play, some situational coaching, and then just some unfortunate stuff too of just turning the ball over in some inconvenient spots and things like that. But yeah, overall, it's not looking great for them. But again, they're also still in a fine spot because of the fact that they're in the NFC.
Now I want to ask you guys too. So Herbert yesterday has a lot of key drops from his receivers. Keenan Allen dropped that one in the end zone. The announcers even blame that on, and the announcers blame that on like how the shade was like near the end zone and stuff. And you can kind of see he just didn't pick up the ball. Like it hit him in the chest and then he reacts, right? And then I forget who it was late, misses that ball over the shoulder. He drops
Quentin
that.
Johnston.
There was probably 3 or 4.
Quentin Johnson.
Quentin Johnson. So 3 or 4 of those for Herbert. But here's my thing. I feel like no one's talking about. They had a 4th and 1 at the end of the game there, and he just does a run-of-the-mill pass over the middle and gets it batted down when he was scrambling a lot more that game. Why not just call your own number there and say, all right, this isn't perfect. I'm just going to tuck it and go because it's 4th and 1. Granted, it was in Packers territory, or sorry, Chargers territory, their own territory. But I don't know. I feel like he should have just tucked it there. He had protection. Just get that 1 yard and then go after that because he had success against the Packers all day, granted, with the drops too. But I don't know. Like you can blame the receivers for sure, but I would like my elite quarterback to make the 4th and 1. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, there's definitely in that. I think you've got to come through in that position. So you do have to put that sum on the quarterback because you would put it on any other quarterback. So I can't just leave him out. Put it on Mahomes. We put it on Burrow. We put it on Josh Allen. We put it on Lamar Jackson for sure. These other quarterbacks we put it on, and we want to talk about him there. We've got to put it on him as well. The reason why they were in that position, I would put on the receivers because Keenan Allen did drop a touchdown, like a bona fide touchdown. He dropped a 3rd down and 8 pass when they were in the red zone. That would have been a 1st and goal that they probably would have scored on too. Like he cost them 8 points. Essentially, because I think they got 2 field goals out of it. They would have gotten 2 touchdowns with plus the extra points and baking those in. He cost them 8 points, and that completely changes the entire complexion of the game. So that alone, and then Quentin Johnson also dropped that bomb to him, which also that's a little bit of injuries because that would have been Mike Williams, and if that's Mike Williams, you expect that to be caught with him, how big time of a receiver he is. But yeah, no, you're right. On those kind of 4th down plays, I wish people would get a little bit more creative. Sometimes I feel like they just allow. It's like, okay, they're just gonna drop back and do something. Like I like when you get quarterbacks out on bootlegs, where you kind of get the defense shift a little bit more. Where it's just like get players to move more, just to give more option. Because then, like if you're already rolling out, maybe then you can run for it, or someone can break open. I don't know. I just always felt like there should be a little bit more little more innovation on those kind of plays. But again, I'm not an offensive coordinator, so like maybe they were looking at me.
It does
I'm
seem like
stupid
4th and
for saying
1.
such but no.
It seems like 4th and short bootlegs have like a 95% chance. Like it seems like anytime you see that they work, or even on the goal line, it seems like they always work. If you've got an athletic quarterback, he's either got options who are scrambling or he can just run it himself. And you got one guy to make an open field tackle. Like,
Because it's just,
yeah, I like my chances on that each time.
I don't know. I just especially if you're not lined up in the middle and you're lined up on a hash and you can go to the strong side. Again, just say, hey, you have much more yardage. I just feel like that's kind of almost like a foolproof plan. It's almost like it's like the brotherly shove in a sense. Like you just get an athletic quarterback already on the move. So if he does need to tuck it and run for 9 feet, like he can probably do that. If not, someone's going to break open in that sense. I don't know. I just feel like there could be a little bit more innovation and not putting your quarterback at running back and running a toss play there on a down. I don't think that's probably the innovation we need to run there. Shout out to the Vikings for that. But yeah.
I want someone to take the brotherly shove or the tush push a step further and just throw their quarterback across. Like just bring in one of your defensive linemen and just like
put in a backup QB and just throw
exactly, yeah. Like the cheerleader push, whatever they call that. You know what I mean? Just do one of those.
Give me an A. How did you feel about the end of the game, Tim?
Personally, I kind of hate it when we see it with a lot of analysts. They say like wins are a QB stat. The Chargers should have won that game like 36-20. It should have been the final score. Because Keenan Allen dropped, like you said, he kind of cost them like 8 points. They have to settle for field goals. Austin Eckler bounces one, and if he just looked like 2020 Austin Eckler, he houses that. That's another touchdown. He was running in slow motion that game.
Yeah,
that was
4-8.
Yeah,
I'm
faster than that. I'm pretty sure. Like I would have caught him. Chasing him down.
That was 4-8. I was so confused because normally Austin Eckler has like some burst. That looks like 4-8.
It confused me. I saw the video on TikTok and the caption was, "This is not slowed down at all." And then I was like, "What?" He's like jogging out there, and he totally could have housed it if he just like had the speed, the breakaway speed. And then, I just think if his receivers weren't dropping passes, they weren't put in that position to where, they failed on the 4th and 1 or whatever. So, I don't think Herbert is the only one to blame here. I think it does fall more on like the team that didn't get him there.
No, I don't definitely hate that at all. But what's up?
He had no burst on that play. I didn't see that play yesterday. He had absolutely no burst.
It literally looked
he made
like
it to the second level and just coasted.
Yeah, he's just like.
It was like when in Madden you get so upset because you're just holding turbo and then the turbo just runs out and your guy's just like jogging. Or like when J.R. Smith was sick, Kyle, during the game, so every time he didn't have the ball, he just moved so slow. Like, wait, what happened to J.R.? For context, anybody, J.R. Smith caught the flu mid-game in 2K. So anytime he didn't have the ball, he moved as if he had 2 cement blocks on his feet. When he did have the ball, he moved like regular old J.R. Smith. Just a 2K fun thing. So we had no idea what happened. But, yeah.
So how do you feel, guys?
Actually, sorry, go on, Kyle. No, I was just going to say, shout out to Timmy's Giants for the win. Shout out to Saquon, great.
Tommy DeVito has more 2-touchdown games than Kenny Pickett. I sent that to Kyle the other day. That's insane that could happen. Like, the Giants are the Commanders' kryptonite. It just happens every single year. Like, the best thing that happened for them was, like, last year they tied. That was, like, the best thing the Commanders could pull off.
And
they had like 12 sacks and they just couldn't put it away. It was just so bad.
I know. And they're going to do the same thing about 6 days from now, and we're going to be okay. Man. Sorry, Kyle, what were you saying?
I was just wondering how y'all feel about the AFC wildcard picture. I said I like the Bills' chances after that win. I thought they were going to win anyway. And granted, they do have a very tough schedule. I do like the energy the Bills played with, though. They were just like on a mission that game, as they fucking should have been, given how their last few weeks have been. But I mean, still, like if you look at their stats across the league, like they're stats wise, I know the eye test doesn't tell it, but stats wise, they're still like upper echelon, which is weird because you would not expect that. So how do you feel given their schedule, given that the Chargers took a true step back? We got the Browns who are taking a step forward here. By the way, we didn't even give Kevin Stefanski love for Coach of the Year last year. I mean, he really, with no Deshaun, no Chubb, and he's probably going to find his way in the playoffs. You got to give him the edge over the Steelers now. I think they have one more game against each other too, right?
Yeah.
So
he could find his way in the division lead. I'm not like that's the thing.
Outside chance, yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, because they just keep winning. They have right now. I believe they'd have the tiebreaker over the Ravens. So and they have So I mean, they have the Broncos, Rams, Jags, Bears, Texans, Jets, Bengals.
Tim Boyle's Jets.
That's Tim Boyle's Jets, Jake Browning's Bengals, Justin Fields Bears, Matt Stafford's Rams. Like I've not that those are bad teams, but that's 4 wins. To me, that could be 4 wins for sure. That could get them to 11, and then between I don't think they're going to run the table to get the 13, but between the Broncos, Jags, and Texans, like they could get to 12, and it wouldn't be crazy. And if they get to 12, they could win the division, which would be crazy. And Kevin Stefanski would have to be Coach of the Year. Like I think it'd have to be, unless like the Texans went like 11-7 or 6 or something like that. But to move on to your point, which was talking about the AFC wildcard picture, I think the Browns are definitively in for me. I just don't see them falling off. And I think, as I just spoke on their schedule, I think it's too light for them to just completely lose these games just because of how good their defense is. So that's 1. 2, I personally have either the Texans or the Jags. I think whatever AFC South team doesn't make it as the division winner, it's going to be the other one's going to make it. So that's your second. And so then there's that third, which the Bills could sneak in because it'd be between the Bills, the Broncos, the Steelers right now. And you would want to favor. And then the Bengals I'll throw outside chances in case Jake Browning's actually pretty decent because like they have enough talent to, but I think their schedule's too hard for them to actually do it. But for me, it'd be between those 3 teams. And I honestly I think I'd probably favor the Steelers right now, and that's just because of how easy their schedule is.
Kind of have to with their schedule,
the Bills
right?
Still have the Bills have just such a tough schedule coming down. They put themselves in a bad position. I mean, right now, like just us, they have the Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys. Right there, do you see a win? Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys. It's in Philly, in Kansas City, home for Dallas. The home for Dallas would be the only one I actually see a win. I think they lose both of those games, the Philly and Kansas City ones. Me personally,
I mean,
if I had to bet
you'd,
right now.
you'd feel better. You'd feel better if it was KC at home. Definitely feel better if it's KC at home. I mean, if they're playing with that energy, I mean, they get up for the KC games. Like those always historically are good games. So never really know late in the season. We'll find out a lot about KC tonight. I mean, y'all know how I feel about them. I feel like they're kind of fool's gold a little bit, just overall as a team. They'll pull out big wins and all that, but I just don't like. I don't think they're the same explosive team that they've been in years past, right? But so who knows with that game? Cowboys, as we said, especially that one being Bills at home, cold weather game too. That's probably going to be mid-December. So never know. I mean, those games get tricky in Buffalo in mid-December. If you can get a snowstorm, you got to favor the Bills in that. Yeah, they love that kind of game. So those are 2 winnable games, honestly. Just if we're taking this version. Granted, I think the Jets quit a little bit yesterday. I mean, that Shaheed, when he got deep, they gave up on that play. They absolutely just gave up on that play. Shakir, I should say. So the Jets are pretty dead on arrival. We'll never see fucking Rodgers until next year.
No. But I'll let Timmy go more on in depth on this in just a second. But for me, I see him 3-3 out of their last. I see him 3-3 out of their last 6, which puts them at 9-8. I think you need at least 10 to get in. And because you have the Eagles, Chiefs, and Cowboys, I think they go 1-2 over that. Me personally, so that would put them at 6-7 or at 7-7. And then they have the Chargers, Patriots, Dolphins. I think they go 2-1 over that. Could they go 3-0? Yes. To get them to 10-7, sure. But I think that they go 2-1 over that, and I think they go 9-8, and they miss the playoffs. But Timmy, you're good to go.
It's really hard because the 7 seed is kind of like open.
Yes.
You had said
the Broncos are interesting for it too.
That's exactly my theory, is that if it's going to come down to the Bills getting the 7 seed, I kind of favor the Broncos' schedule coming up. And they've been and they have the tiebreaker, and they've been playing really well defensively. Since that 70-point game, they've like completely turned it around. They're like, you wouldn't even expect a team to score 40 on this defense, at least. I kind of like the Broncos' shot at getting that 7 seed. So, like, if I was a betting person, I'd probably say the Bills miss. I don't necessarily think Cleveland is a lock, but I think they have a very good shot at just staying in 5th or 6th spot. Great defense. They can run still, but they have some pretty bad injuries. I mean, there's still a chance that the Bills make it. The only thing is,
for sure,
if the Bills make it, I'm kind of worried about the Bills when it comes to the playoffs. Like, I would be scared to play the Bills if the Bills make the playoffs, because if the Bills make the playoffs, they win 2 of these next 4 games, and that means they can beat contenders. But I just personally, I don't see it happening. But if they want to make the playoffs, then they're going to have to win some of these games, which would put them into kind of that contenders bracket because of the schedule.
Yes.
They'll be playing desperate football. That we can assure.
I think it's
and their defense
tough.
looked better, but I mean it's Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle, so I mean
that's not going to do much.
Zachy showed up on arrival.
Yeah, Zachy did what he needed to do. I tried to give him all the push I could and just be like, "Hey, you're okay," and he just said, "No, Keenan, I really am not good at this sport. So
like, can't play this position on the third string."
I tried to do everything I could. I was like, "Yeah, I tried. Zach, I really did. I really, really tried for you to just get you there." I
have a fun fact and then a question, but I don't want to cut you off, Kane. But the fun fact, real quick.
Yeah, you're good.
I guess Tim Boyle's stats in college, he went to UConn.
They're terrible.
I guess he had 1 touchdown to 13 picks.
Yep.
How do you even make it to the NFL?
Don't know.
With 1 touchdown.
Don't know. I don't know how he's the backup quarterback there. I really don't. He's 1 touchdown to 13 picks at UConn. It's what he just replaced Zach Wilson. If that lets you know how bad Zach Wilson is, their guy at UConn had like a 9. Oh, I don't even want to go. It's terrible.
There's no reason for him to be.
To be fair, UConn is the school that good schools call and pay a lot of money to just beat up. So like they're probably playing like a lot of SEC opponents and whatnot. This happens like every year. They're one of those schools that plays like decent schools. So I don't necessarily.
1 touchdown.
Yeah, I wouldn't put him in the NFL by any means. I'm more confused why the Jets didn't sign like Carson Wentz. The Rams went out and signed him. He's an upgrade over Zach Wilson. Even Matt Ryan might be an upgrade over Zach Wilson right now. Probably not in that scenario because their offensive line is trash. But if Josh Dobbs was on the trade block, whatever the Vikings gave up to get him, the Jets should have done that. Like, there are much better options than Tim Boyle and Zach Wilson. They should have done something when they had the chance. They need to understand that Aaron Rodgers is not coming back this year. They don't have a playoff shot. They're not making a run into January, February. So he's done. Just go get something that can salvage this season potentially. It's not Zach Wilson. I'll tell you that.
So
yeah, Saleh's going to use his job because of it. I mean, I said week 2, like, dude, why even trust Zach Wilson? You're spitting in the face of Jets fans after what they've seen from Zach Wilson the last 2 seasons. Like, why even bring him back? And that leads to my next question, though. Ken, I know you had a topic, but I really want to ask y'all. Like, and I know, Tim, you were huge on the Jets, but given what we've seen from the offensive line, given what we've seen from their weapons, at least you'd figure that their weapons could make Zach Wilson look good. Breece Hall has here once in a while, but overall, they haven't produced much, I would say. What do you think, like, realistically at this point in the season? What would they look like with Aaron Rodgers? What's their record? Because I think they're more so in the middle.
Okay, I'm gonna answer that. I just want to say this real quick because we were just talking about it. Tim Boyle played the likes of South Florida, Cincinnati, Central Florida, Louisville. Cincinnati had a 3-pick game. Louisville he had a 3-pick game. Played.
Those were the only two
Memphis.
teams that I cared about in those 4. And he played better.
Central Florida. He went 17-21 for 47 yards and 2 picks.
47.
Yeah,
Like,
he had 3 carries for negative 13 yards.
Like not
4-7.
147 or 247.
No, like 4 and then 7.
He completed
this
how
his
many
senior
passes?
year?
7. No, this was his first year. So that's his freshman. That's where he got most of his starts. That's where he was 0 touchdowns to 8 picks. His senior year, he threw 1 touchdown, and that was his sophomore. His senior year, he played in 6 games or 5 games. He threw passes in. He really played in 2. He got a W against Houston. Had one of his best college career games, 12 of 22, 110, 0 touchdowns, 0 picks. And then he played Temple the next week, went 12 of 20 for 121 and a pick, but he did get a nice solo tackle. So yeah, that's
So
so
you're
I just want to
you're telling me, and now we're just gonna get off of this Jets topic here, just because I have genuine questions. You're telling me he was a run of the mill backup in college, and he made the NFL.
Yeah. He by his stat line, he started, and this is 3 years with Connecticut. It looks like he started 4, 6, 8. Look, about 8 games roughly. He started just off of statistics wise. So I don't really know what went on throughout his tenure there, but he started about 8 actually.
He must have had the absolute out of his mind Senior Bowl or something. Like one of these pro days, he just had to have like the Tom Brady. He just like completely different person, went nuts, and then like one scout liked him, and that scout was on.
Or had a body double.
Yeah, he had a stunt double come in and play better than him.
Well, he went to Eastern Kentucky too, and I think that. No, I can't even find his Eastern Kentucky stats, so I really don't know what happened. Like he wasn't good. Anyways, we'll move on because in 2017 he went to Eastern
one last
Kentucky.
question.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, okay, so that kind of answered it. So he was drafted in 2018.
Yeah, he would have been drafted. Are you under? I'll check that in just a second. So he had a high school career. Wow. His senior year, he threw 2,500 yards and 24 touchdowns and won the senior class LL championship for the 3rd straight season. Good for him. Then he did nothing, and I repeat, nothing in his 3 years at UConn. And then he transferred over, and then as a redshirt senior at Eastern Kentucky, it was 2,134 yards and 11 touchdowns. Had the 5th most passing yards in one season ever in Eastern Kentucky history at 21,034. It's at 2,134. Yeah. Oh,
so I'm assuming he goes undrafted because if you're telling me he's drafted, this is giving me even more reason to not believe in NFL scouts when it comes to QBs. I mean, the fact he's even in the NFL, I don't understand that.
I'm not seeing a draft. I think he was undrafted. So yeah.
So he just came in off the street and was like, "Hey guys, check my tape. It's shit." But
he's friends. You want to know why he's there? It's because he's friends with Aaron.
I've heard he's friends with Aaron Rodgers.
That's
right?
why he was there. Like, he was in. He's good friends with Aaron Rodgers. So because he was in Green Bay.
How does that even happen?
He was in Green Bay in 2019 and 2020. He threw 4 passes in those 2 years. And then 2021, he played 3 games. He started 3 games with the Lions, 3 touchdowns to 6 picks, 0-3. 2022, he 2 for 8, 25 yards or 33 yards, 2 picks with the Bears. So in 8 throws, he had 2 completions and 2 picks. And then now we're here. Friends with Aaron Rodgers. Listen, when you are friends with people in higher ups, that's where you get him. Okay, so now we're going to skirt our way right back to this Aaron Rodgers guy. And I think they would be probably 7-3, honestly, Kyle. And here's why. I don't think the defense plays any different. And so they win the Bills game. I don't think they probably don't beat the Cowboys, but that's a closer game. They definitely can beat the Patriots. The Chiefs game was close. I think with Aaron Rodgers, you can win that Chiefs game. Obviously, these games are obviously going to be all different, anyways. And the Eagles game the Eagles game they won. The Giants game they won. The Chargers game they did get beat bad, and then the Raiders game. Like a lot of these games have been closer that they've lost, and I think Aaron Rodgers makes that difference. So I think they would be roughly around the 7-3 mark because, as you're right, this team does have a lot of talent on it, and they haven't basically made Zach Wilson any better. I think that just shows how bad Zach Wilson is rather than how not good this talent is because Garrett Wilson's getting separation, and when you're putting the ball in his vicinity, he's making plays. Breece Hall, when you're giving him options,
Had a couple drops yesterday too.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's bound to happen though. I mean, you can't be perfect, but when you're only giving,
I guess I expected more. I mean, Wilson's bad. Don't get me wrong. I've said, Wilson's as bad as it gets, but I don't know. I expect a little more out of this receiving core, you know?
I mean, yeah, and you're right. Yesterday he was bad. He didn't really get targeted that much. But before that, his last 4 games yardage wise before was 93, 80, 190. So like he was getting what he could. And then, but Breece Hall, when you're running him only 12, 16, 13, and 10 times, it's not going to get it done. He should touch the ball 20 times a game for you.
That's kind of where I'm going.
At least
too.
20.
That's where I'm going with this too. I think they'd be closer to where Buffalo is right now. Not because Aaron Rodgers necessarily played bad, but because of their offensive line. Nobody would have time. I mean, shit. Rodgers had 3 plays, 2 of them he was touched in the backfield, right? Mm-hmm. So you have that. Saleh's just a bad coach. Maybe if I'm being nice, he's an average coach. That's it, though. He's certainly not a good coach. He can coach defense, but he doesn't even care about the offense. What's his name? Nate Hackett. He's not doing shit as an offensive coordinator. Your job is to make Wilson look at least okay, and he hasn't done that. Again, Wilson just sucks anyway. It would be hard to make him look okay. But what from any of those, from the coaching staff to their weapons to, their defense, like you said, has been good, but their weapons and their coaching staff hasn't inspired any positivity out of me by any means. But again, how can you when you have Zach Wilson as your quarterback? But I do think they still would have issues with Aaron Rodgers.
They would have Super Bowl issues, but I think they would be I think they'd be second in the division. I think they'd be better than the Bills, and I think they'd be competing with the Dolphins. But Timmy, I'll let you speak.
Even with a fully healthy Bills defense?
Probably. I honestly, yeah, because that's kind of what I had them predicted as before. I don't see that really changing much. I just think how good the Jets defense has been. You have Aaron Rodgers in key Aaron Rodgers spots. Unless he fell off a cliff, I think he's able to make those throws and get the plays because I really do think Garrett Wilson is like top 5 potential receiver talent. Like he's that good, and Breece Hall is top 8-ish, top running back talent. He's that good. It's just the fact that they don't use him like they should, and I think that has to do with the coaching and the play calling rather than it does with Aaron. Would do with Aaron. I think you changed that though.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is when Aaron got hurt, that offensive playbook probably shrunk by like 60%.
80%?
Yeah, where they were just like, okay, all of these plays,
100%.
Yeah, really, like all of these plays are just completely off the table because Zach can't make these throws or Zach can't read the offense or read the defense that quick to where he can make a quick throw. And that is really what's been like hurting them. Defenses are going to play the Jets completely different playing against Zach Wilson than they would against Aaron Rodgers. Just that right there makes Breece Hall an even better running back. And he's actually been pretty solid this year, given that he doesn't get to touch the rock too much.
He just doesn't touch the ball that much. That's the problem.
Exactly.
When he does, he's made like 2 electric plays a game every time he does touch the ball. It's just hard for him to do that, I guess.
I think Aaron complements Breece, and then Breece by then it's like a very complimentary football. Like having both of those
Yes.
guys there completely changes this offense to where all of those one-score games are now Jets wins. I would agree. I probably wouldn't have them like their offensive line is still really bad. I can't have them as like a 10-0 team or an 8-2 team, but like 6-4, 7-3 at the best is probably where they would be. Like Keenan said, I think they probably still lose to Dallas.
That's where I'm at. More like 6-4, 5-5.
I would have them ahead of the Bills for sure, and I think I'd probably have them as a playoff team. I think getting right in at like the 6th seed, maybe the 7th seed.
Mm-hmm.
Word. I was just curious because to me, I agree with you guys are saying, and I see what you mean, especially when you look at that they are in these games, even with Zach Wilson. But I don't know, their coaching is just so bad, and you can see it more. Whereas, like, you look at a team like Cleveland, or you look at the Raiders, even just with Antonio Pierce, or these other teams who have lost their starting QB, like the Bengals. I think the Bengals are going to look formidable even with their backup. Just with the Jets, you just see such dumb coaching decisions, whether it's play calling. Again, we have to factor in Zach Wilson and all this, but I just don't think Saleh's great regardless. And there's only so much an aging quarterback can make up. Granted, again, the QBs are so bad in the league anyway, Rodgers wouldn't have to do much. But I think the Jets are going to be much better off next year. I'm assuming Saleh won't be there. So if you got Saleh and a new OC and Rodgers off his robotically repaired Achilles, apparently, I mean, you're just better off by default. And we'll get to play this whole game again next year with Rodgers because that's going to be a circus. It really is.
I think
even if he still wants to be back week 13.
I think Saleh will be there next year. Personally, I don't think it's really Saleh's decision to start Zach Wilson. I think he wanted to move on from Zach Wilson and go sign somebody like months ago. He's had a couple press conferences where it looks like his answer to the question, is Zach Wilson still your quarterback, isn't his answer. It sounds like one that he's being told to tell them because somebody else there, maybe the GM, maybe the president, whatever it is, somebody else is believing in Zach Wilson. And that kind of shows you from the GM standpoint, they did absolutely nothing to fill Aaron Rodgers' vacant seat this season. They didn't even go and sign like a practice squad guy or anything like that. Like they were just going to move forward with Zach Wilson and no backup potentially, knowing that there was a very good possibility that Aaron Rodgers, even if they made a Super Bowl run, couldn't play in the Super Bowl. I just think if they believe in Zach Wilson, this is their fault. And I think if they believe in Zach Wilson, they probably still believe in Robert Saleh. And the defense has been playing still like really solid. And we still see flashes on offense.
So the main problem with the Jets is that the New York Jets became the New York Aaron Rodgers, and he is not there. You got Allen Lazard, you got Nathaniel Hackett, you got Tim Boyle as a backup, you've got Randall Cobb, you've got everything that they did was to say, hey, Aaron, we want you here. From the people that are in office, like coaching, to the players that are on the team, everything about it. And within 4 minutes, he's gone. So, and at that point, now you're just scrambling. And so it's on the Jets organization because obviously you're going to have, it's at the NFL, so the chance that you're getting injured is always on the table. Anyone can get injured at any point. You hope they don't, but anybody can get injured at any point. Aaron Rodgers has been injured multiple times throughout his entire career. The calf, his collarbone, he's been injured multiple times. So to think that he was going to last a front to back season definitively is not wise. It's not like it was Tom Brady in his last years to where every hit he was going to avoid. There was no Tom just didn't take hits late until he had to week 16 and on. But so they basically catered and molded the entire season around Aaron Rodgers, and he was gone in 60 seconds. So it's okay, now what do we do? And now they're just still in the scramble mode. So that's kind of why it looks weird, because with Aaron, I think everything changes. Nathaniel Hackett obviously looks much better with Aaron because he has a rapport with him. You have your backup quarterbacks and your receivers look better with them, and then obviously just Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall are just so talented that they're going to be fine with whomever they have out there, really, once they get the opportunities. So that's what kind of is weird about the Jets is it was Aaron Rodgers, and he's not there.
That's why they're the Jets.
That's why they're the Jets. No, they really put their entire season around Aaron Rodgers. There's nothing like obviously like when the Bucks traded or when the Rams traded for Stafford, the Bucks traded for Tom. They were there to help change the culture. And Tom brought in some key players that he liked. Obviously, like Antonio Brown ended up being there was helpful. He wanted Leonard Fournette to come there, but you still had
culture changer at Antonio Brown.
Culture changer Antonio Brown, but you still had Todd Bowles in that defense, which was still one of the staples there already. And he came in there and helped molded with Bruce Arians, not just took it over completely. And they already had talent there. So like Tom Brady came in just to set like the winning aspect of it. Stafford came in. He didn't have to set any of the winning aspects. He just came in and said, we need someone who's going to make key third down plays. We need someone who can really stretch the ball down the field because Jared Goff is not that guy anymore at this point for us. And that's what he did. And so like that, but Aaron Rodgers, they said, hey, you're going to take this Jets team that hasn't won since Joe Namath, and you're going to say, you're going to take all of that and change everything. And it's like, okay. They put their on a 40-year-old that gets injured, and that's what they did. And that's why this season is going the way it's going. Yeah, that's the Jets. But that's pretty much it. I got enough a lot of Tim Boyle off, which was nice. I love to break down these lovely, good NFL players.
Tim? What's your thoughts on tonight's game?
I actually was just listening to your guys' episode of the podcast, and the Eagles Chiefs.
Shouts to us.
Was like the one that kind of stuck. I think the Eagles are the better team. I think I would pick the Eagles. I don't know about a score. Did you guys see Ryan Fitzpatrick's take? I think it was during like a halftime show last week. He said that the Chiefs needed to get beat bad. I forget what words he used, but people were like mad at him for the way he said it because it was definitely a weird wording. I agree.
No, I did not see that.
The Chiefs are like a really weird team. Their defense is good, but their offense hasn't lived up to that offensive Andy Reid production that they've had over the last like few years. So I think the Eagles need to beat them. I think the Eagles probably win this game by like 10 or 13 points, to be honest.
Wow. I don't think they win that big. And I've been going back and forth since Thursday. I mean, I was originally going to pick the Chiefs. I think I did pick the Chiefs and then flipped. And then this morning, I'm like, I was all over the Eagles. I'm like, yeah, the Eagles are going to win this game. And then I was actually on my way here talking to Jadams. Shouts to Jadams.
Shout out Jadams.
And he was like, man, Mahomes at home after a bye week, like how can you go wrong with that? And I'm like, you're kind of right. But Sirianni, low-key, 2-0 after a bye week as well. It's going to be a bad weather game. Looks like it's going to be some rain and some wind. I think that favors Philly. I don't know, man. I just hope it's going to be a good game. It's got game of the year potential. But this Chiefs team's so weird. I mean, they really don't reflect their record. I truly believe that. And I'm not trying to sound like a hater. I'm trying to fade everybody in the Chiefs. Yeah, they're probably going to be in the AFC Championship game. But I would not be in the least bit surprised if they're not in the AFC Championship game too. So for them to win this game, I really do think it would have to be like, oh, the Chiefs are all the way back. They found their number one receiver. Kelce has a 7-8 reception game for 114 and 2 touches. That's what it would take for them to win to me. And I don't know if we're getting that. Granted, you can throw on the Eagles defense for sure, but I don't know. I think top to bottom, the Eagles are definitely the better team. It's just, what you feel the edge is there. And you could say that it's the Chiefs defense, but I don't know. I think the Eagles also can combat that pretty effectively.
The last 2 weeks of offense, the last 2 weeks of offense we've seen from the Chiefs are 9 points and 14 points.
So
Thank you for that.
here's what I've got to. Here's what I've got to say though. So, Andy, as I said, I think it's still 30-22 Chiefs. You've got Andy Reid off of a bye. I think they're going to make a statement today. You've got
Chiefs put up 30
Rashid
tonight.
Wright. Yeah, I said this already. 30-22. Like I said this. I said this in our podcast.
I think he meant 13.
I know, but
30. 30. Like what? This pass defense isn't
30?
good. Like the Eagles' pass defense hasn't been
secondary's
good
not
all
good.
season.
Factor
Their
in though the
secondary's not
bad weather
good.
at least.
The bad weather. Mahomes is one of the best bad weather quarterbacks. Like I think.
Yeah.
Like I don't.
Sure.
I mean, if I want to
can't run
factor
the
that
ball,
in, then maybe it gets down to 26. I could see Mahomes throwing for 350. Like who's guarding Travis Kelce?
That's
he
the
doesn't.
thing.
He's not
Kelce
getting
can't
350 yards. Like Kelce is the
No,
only
he's not
option.
getting.
I think
He's not getting. I think Rashid Rice has been actually pretty good all season long. Rashid Rice has actually been.
but he's not.
I think so.
He's
I
not
think
100-yard guy. None of these guys are like even like Rashi Rice and like every other wide receiver on this team is like a 50 yards at best wide receiver. They need them all to pop off for him to get 350.
I think Rashid is 75. I could see him getting 60.
Maybe, yeah.
I could see Valdez Scantling getting behind the defense for 50 on one play. Getting behind the defense one time on this secondary, I could see Travis Kelce 10 for $120. Mahomes will spread the ball around. It's the same way and at this point I'm fine to compare it this way. It's the same way when we watched the Patriots. The Patriots had a bunch of level guys, but when you had Tom Brady, you're okay. Chris Hogan can put up the same stats as Julio Jones in AFC Championship game. Like that's the kind of thing, and I think Mahomes is at that kind of level to where these guys, especially in the bye week, can get to that.
Big difference though. Don't get me wrong, Kelce's elite, but we had goddamn Shaq at tight end for all those years. That made everyone's job. Edelman, Hogan, whoever, Brandon LaFell, all of them made their jobs a lot easier. Which don't get me wrong, Kelce's that dude, but he's been pretty.
Is Rob Gronkowski a better tight end than Travis Kelce? All time. Just want I want it.
Come on, you know where I stand.
Thank you.
You know where I stand.
Thank you. So I just need to. I just keep hearing like Travis Kelce's the best off time. Blah blah blah. I need to.
Gronk highlights are fake. They're not. They don't even compute. It would be like what LeBron James would be at tight end, basically. Maybe not as LeBron would probably be faster, but I mean Gronk. Come on, man. I'll take it a step further. That tight end that might have caught bodies and then killed himself. I might take prime Aaron Hernandez over Kelce. I thought before Aaron Hernandez did his thing.
Let's just end the show.
Hey, hold up. I thought before Aaron Hernandez did his thing, I thought they had the 1 and 2 tight ends in the league. Absolutely. Hernandez was.
I 100% agree. I think there was one definitive in top 5. One in
Keaton
top
comes
5.
back and agrees.
No. I agree with the fact that Aaron Hernandez at that time was definitely easily a top
Number
5
2.
tenant. I do not agree. Travis Kelce.
Let me say this. Let me continue. Hernandez. We were running plays for Hernandez out of the backfield. Where do you see that with tight ends? Like we used Hernandez as a receiver, tight end,
versatile,
back,
sure.
He could block. Hold on, but then his career was cut short due to murder, due to gang activity. So we didn't even get to see Hernandez peak. So all right, you're right. It's crazy to say that, but I am saying if Hernandez continued his career, then you got something there. Then that's an argument. Maybe I just want to step out on the ledge a little bit. Yeah, that's insane. Like, but Hernandez.
Don't get me wrong. Hernandez. The ledge.
I jumped off the ledge,
right
but
now.
player for player, Hernandez, what he was versus Kelce at their peak.
Okay, so
it's probably closer than what you think. It's closer than what you think. That's what I would say.
Is Debo better than Justin Jefferson?
No.
Debo comes out of the backfield and runs. Debo is a better blocker than Justin Jefferson. He's a more versatile player.
For sure.
He is not better than Justin Jefferson.
What I would say also, though, is we're not even close to what Debo's peak is yet. I feel like Debo's not healthy enough to where we can see that either. Whereas Justin Jefferson pretty immediately was elite. Whereas Debo's still emerging. Whereas Hernandez was right at that point where he was about to really like ascend into his career, and he said, "Guess what? I'm about that gang life, not the Pats
body
culture."
after body after body. I'm shape shit. Sorry, that was a little battle rap line. But So here's the thing.
Look how we went from the Eagles Chiefs instantly into a Hernandez Kelce. I like it.
So,
oh shit!
This is getting clipped. Okay. Absolutely, this will be clipped, and this is the last thing we're saying before the game because we got a couple minutes left. But you're right, and Debo was at that point. I think Debo was at the same point Aaron Hernandez was. But you know what happened? They got Christian McCaffrey, so I don't think you're ever going to see it with Debo. Unfortunately, it was basically like how we felt with a lot of some players. Like when KD, when he obviously went to the Warriors, we're like, oh, KD might be poised for his best season ever. Like, completely different, like a void of anybody. And then they're like, okay, cool. Or Steph is cool for this. And then just that happened. But, okay, I was not expecting that one. I agree. I think Gronk's better than Travis Kelce. I want to hear none of that. I don't care. You can bring me all the, he always got more 1,000-yard seasons, blah, blah, blah. If you're having one game for your life, you tell me what tight end you'd have. You want the better blocking tight end. You want the better clutch tight end. You want the better winner. You want
Gronk's the answer.
You want Gronk.
Gronk's all the way the answer. I would just say to everyone who thinks what I said was crazy, yeah, it does sound crazy, but go watch some Aaron Hernandez highlights because it's not like he was just a run-of-the-mill tight end here. Aaron Hernandez was on his way to being a special tight end. Like, that's the truth. That's absolutely the truth, and it's scary. You think the shit was scary with how the league went without Aaron Hernandez? It's even scarier if they keep Aaron Hernandez and that whole Gronk Hernandez train keeps running. I mean, there's years after that where Gronk gets injured, we still make it to the Super Bowl,
we have 9.
You know, not as effective. But
Brady has 9. They beat the Broncos and they beat the Broncos. They beat that Panthers team. They have 9.
Let me do a full rephrase of the statement here. If Hernandez never catches bodies, Hernandez never murders people, never shoots homeboy's eye out, right? Then Hernandez Kelce becomes a true argument because we would have had like, I don't want to say 14 years of Hernandez because at some point the gang life would have caught up to him. So maybe we get 9 seasons of him, you know, catching bodies, catching touchdown passes, and you know,
he was catching patches of eyes because he was popping them out and putting them on the windowsill. Like, he was catching eyes, but he could have been catching passes, but instead was catching bodies. So, but yeah, Tim, I'm sorry you have to deal with 2 Patriots fans here, but no, they're absolutely.
Yeah, we literally got like 3.5 minutes into Chiefs Eagles talk before we somehow got sidetracked into.
But
greatest
okay,
tight end
so
of all time.
back to it.
Into a Kyle hot take that was unnecessary.
Chiefs over Eagles 30-22. When people see this, they'll know if I'm right on the money, if I'm wrong, completely wrong. Tim has an Eagles convincing win, and Kyle has an Eagles win here. It's about a couple minutes from game time, so we're heading out. I'm putting a stamp on it now. Aaron Hernandez better than Travis Kelce. I'm just kidding. But this was the Warner Brothas podcast.
Catch us on live take after the game.
Oh, yeah.
Catch us on live take after the game.
Okay.
Eagles Chiefs reaction show.
I guess we're doing after the game. Okay. Catch us. So when you're seeing is catch us on live take for a reaction to the game. Because you guys probably won't see this until after it's done. But regardless, live take, Castro, Keenan Warner, you got Instagram, you've got TikTok, you've got YouTube, Warner Brothas Podcast. Timmy, as always, appreciate you coming on, dropping your wisdom, your knowledge, keeping us in line. Warner Brothas Podcast, featuring Timmy. We're out.